The Hornets avoid a 3-game losing streak, beating the Detroit Pistons last night big, and Kelly Oubre we have to thank for it. We'll talk about that today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, local experts on the #1 daily sports podcast network. Thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Check us out on Twitter, Walker Mail, Doug Branson, LOH, Locked On Hornets. And then you can go to YouTube and check us out there as well, where you can not only hear Doug Branson do the Oubre chant, you can see him do it as well and be close to one of those 500 subscribers that we're inching closer and closer to. In the meantime, we'll talk about the Hornets beating the Detroit Pistons last night. A huge win, 140-111. Huge as in the margin of victory. This is a team that they should have beaten. They owned this team. 14 straight victories over Detroit now. Kelly Oubre was sensational, especially in the fourth quarter. Already decided, but hey, might as well pour it on with 8 3-pointers in the fourth quarter for Kelly Oubre.
Pour some Oubre on me.
Oh, man, crazy, Doug. I know you're dying to talk about Kelly. What did you see from him last night? So special, able to hit those 3-point shots. How big was this night for him? And just the overall team to get confidence going.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I think it's quickly becoming one of the better free agency signings in Charlotte Hornets history. I'd love to kind of go down. Wow. It's a short memory lane because they haven't had many huge free agency signings. By the way, instead of a fire rule chant, I would love an Oubre chant. Let's get an Oubre chant going on in the Spectrum Center. Forget fire rule. Let's get an Oubre chant.
The plan is to have Julian Council join us today. Not sure if that's going to happen in the second segment or when that's going to happen, but I know that he was not exactly thrilled with that chant yesterday as the host of the Locked On Panthers podcast, and he's not a fan of Matt Rule being here. We can get to that later, but I'd be down with the Oubre chant as well before I'd be down with the Fire Matt Rule chant.
Listen, Kelly Oubre knows exactly what he's being paid to do, and that's make shots, and that's what he's done all season. It's really been incredible to watch. I think going into this season and into free agency, he even expressed like a desire to start, and he hasn't gotten that opportunity except in short stretches when it's been absolutely necessary. But instead, he's become, I think, one of the leading candidates for Sixth Man of the Year. And I know that Tyler Hero is sort of leading that discussion, but I think Kelly deserves to be kind of 1-2 with Tyler Hero at this point because he's really lifted the Hornets in multiple games. Now, they didn't necessarily need these points, although I think you can make an argument that the Hornets, they're capable of giving up 40 points in any quarter. So this lead was not safe necessarily. So I think doing that as early as he did, knocking down those first couple of threes, I think really put the nail in the coffin in this game. But it was just incredible to see. What was even more incredible to see, Walker, was Eric Collins and Del Curry cheering it on. My favorite part of the game was when Jalen McDaniels had that clear runway to the dunk, and Eric Collins goes, "Oh no, don't do that." Because he wanted to see the record get tied.
Don't we all want to see the record?
Sure,
I remember being mad at Sean Payton taking Alvin Kamara out to score like his 7th touchdown. It's the same thing. I want to see Kelly Oubre pour it in. Give me about 9, 10, 11 3-pointers in the quarter. I would have loved to have seen that as well. And I think we were all Eric Collins in that moment. Happy to see Jalen McDaniels get a dunk, but also wanted to see Kelly. You mentioned him being one of the better free agent signings in Charlotte Hornet history. I think a lot of that has to do with the not so glorious history of the free agents anyway. We've kind of talked about that. But David Wesley is number 1 on this list that we have. Clutch Points put it up there. And if you just want to talk about longevity, somebody that had an impact on the franchise for a long time, David Wesley, a good player too. David Wesley certainly deserves to be in that spot. Al Jefferson is the other one that's so clear in a way an amazing basketball player and had the All-NBA year, the only All-NBA season that we've had from the second reiteration of a professional basketball franchise here in Charlotte. So Al Jefferson getting third-team All-NBA, Big Al's paint, came here at a time where there was nothing that was attractive about the franchise. that to me and David Wesley are pretty clearly 1-2. But Kelly doing a really nice job of at least the first half of the season, scoring a lot for this team, way more consistent than I thought he would be, putting up either around his career high and or his career high shooting-wise, efficiency numbers, some nice counting stats from Kelly. He's really been very good this year, certainly offensively.
He's helping them win basketball games. I mean, that's the stat that matters. Like, you can point to several games this season where you were like, yeah, Kelly off the bench really made a huge impact and allowed them to win this basketball game. I actually did find a Clutch Points article that lists the 5 best free agent signings in franchise history, if you'd like me to run through this.
I did. I kind of did already. Were you listening, or were you just kind of ignoring me? Did you
go through all 5? Did you mention all 5?
No, I did it.
Okay,
I did it. I
have all 5. You may have mentioned 2. I have all 5.
Yeah, give me the 5. Give me the 5.
Number 5, Marvin Williams, 2014 to 2020.
That's a good one. Nick Carboni, by the way, said since we're handing out all these 10-day contracts that Marvin Williams should get consideration solely to just be the defensive coordinator out there on the court. Just have everybody be in the right spots, and maybe you limit like 5 points a game just by having Marvin tell everybody where to be.
So he averaged 9.7 points, 5.3 rebounds, 1.3 assists, shooting 43.7% from the field and 37.8% from downtown. Number 4, though, Bobby Phills. Spent his first 6 seasons with Cleveland Cavaliers. Yep, RIP to Bobby. In his first season with the team, he put up 10.4 points, 3.5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.3 steals.
Favorite thing about Bobby Phills, anytime we talk about him, Michael Jordan said that he was one of the hardest players to score against. So always the number one thing I think of with Bobby.
Yeah, and there's a what would have been kind of factor going on there at number 4, because I think he was on the ascent. Number 3, this is a classic name here, classic Hornets name, 1990 to 93, Johnny Newman.
It's such a good one. It's like the sneaky, wow, his stats were that good type of player with the Charlotte Hornets. Johnny Newman, really a nice player for this team.
14.7 points, 2.9 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 1.1 steals, 48.8% from the field for Newman.
I think multiple 50-point games, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's there.
For the Hornets or for...
I think for the Hornets, because I think when either Kemba Walker or somebody did that. I mean, I know Kemba had multiple games, but I think Johnny Newman is on that list, and I tweeted about it. That's the only way I remember it, but pretty sure he's on that list too.
I will look that up after I get done with this list. All right, here we go. So your 1-2 was David Wesley. So on this list, this is, by the way, I need to credit the author, Emmanuel Kanakoza on Clutch Points with the article here. Number 2, 2013 to 2016, Big Al Jefferson. Number 1, David Wesley.
It has to be those two, right? Now, I guess the question is, if we want to make this all tied back to Kelly Oubre.
So I would flop it.
Yeah,
I would go 1 Big Al because he got an All NBA. Now I get David Wesley. David Wesley was a piece, but he was never the best player on any of those Hornets teams that had success.
Yeah, it's always, it's the same question with all of these good players in Hornets history. How much do you weigh longevity to how actually good they were? Like that's always the question with anybody you talk about. Muggsy, Del Curry, ambassadors of the game, good players, but Zoe was a monster. LJ, a monster. It's like Eddie Jones played a year, was an all-star. It's the classic question when trying to evaluate each player's place in history with this franchise, whether it be the first iteration, the second one. It's tough, but yeah, I have no problem with that list or even flipping it.
But I think, so going back to the Kelly Oubre discussion, I really think that he has a chance to crack this list. We don't know how long Kelly Oubre is going to stay here, but if he maintains this impact and accumulates 1 or 2 playoff wins that you go, oh yeah, that game was a Kelly Oubre game in the playoffs, then, I think that vaults him over Marvin Williams, Bobby Phills. I mean, I could see him getting to at least 3. And then if there is, 2, 3, 4 seasons of Kelly Oubre in Charlotte doing this, having this kind of production, I could see him even breaking into the 1-2 list.
Yeah, I think you probably need I don't know. If you're going to get top 5, you might need 3 years here with Charlotte in order to do that. But
or two really. I'm telling you, playoff series win is going to vault a lot of players into a Hornets status that we haven't seen since those early aught days, because it's something that no Bobcat or even Kemba Walker led Hornets squad can hang their hat on. So I think we're going to look, if they manage a playoff series in the next series win in the next 2 seasons, we're going to look at a lot of these role players and individual players much differently than anyone that came before them, post Bobcats.
Yeah, most recently, it's the Jeremy Lin, Courtney Lee effect. Those guys were on that team that got to the postseason, took Miami to 7 games. Courtney Lee had a huge shot to win that game, and now we always remember him despite not playing all that long here in a Charlotte Hornet uniform. So if Kelly Oubre can provide any kind of impact in a playoff series where you win, like we remember Lee and Jeremy, and they weren't even a part of a playoff series win. So yeah,
Right.
Totally could see that happening with one Kelly Oubre. And if they don't decide to shop him, but you should decide to shop with Shopify. That's what you should do. It gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big business, so upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility. Believe me, this podcast started out trying to figure out ways to sell and monetize what we could do here on the podcast, and Shopify would have made that so much easier. And Shopify powers millions of businesses from first scale to full scale. So check out Shopify. Go to shopify.com/LockedOnNBA, all lowercase, by the way, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/LockedOnNBA right now. Shopify.com/LockedOnNBA. We talk more about the big win for against the Detroit Pistons coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is Locked On Hornets.
And listen, as long as you play James Bouknight, a win will always be inside.
Thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every day.
Right?
We are free and available.
They'll show some fight.
On all your platforms. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Thanks again for joining us in the Locked On Hornets podcast, where, as you can see if you watch on YouTube, that Doug makes my job a lot harder than it needs to be sometimes.
Why?
By just being in the background. The rhyme time. It gets me off rhythm, and then I have to get, and then I
It
mess
gets
up.
me on rhythm.
I know.
Rhyming
it does.
gets me on rhythm.
I know it does.
By the way, have you seen my beard? If you're not on YouTube, if you need a reason, come check. My beard's looking really good. I might let this grow out, Walker, until the Hornets make the playoffs. This might become my pre-Hornets playoff beard.
You've gone
Let's just let
with
this bad boy grow.
You started the long hair look, man, probably a couple of years ago now, and you go pretty long distances without cutting it, and now you're saying you might do that with the
I might
beard.
just go full. Why Happy Gilmore? That's not the name I'm looking for. Forrest Gump. I might just go full Forrest
Grizzly
Gump.
Adams, is that what you're thinking because of Happy Gilmore?
Did Grizzly Adams have a beard?
Grizzly Adams did have a beard. Doug Branson did have a beard. I think that's why you went Happy Gilmore, which is fine. It's a great beard
It's fine.
reference.
Anyway, I think I might grow out the beard.
Let's talk more about the Charlotte Hornets win. Big time win, 140. They allow 111 to the Detroit Pistons, but this game was over once you really got into the end of the third quarter. Hornets just explode offensively even more so than usual. Their lowest quarter output was 28 points in the second. PJ Washington returns for the first time since entering COVID health and safety protocols, Doug, and he was really good immediately, scored 14 points, plus minus huge there, 26, gave you 8 rebounds, gave you 4 assists, contributed in a lot of different ways, and knocked down 3-point shots as your center. Impressive for him coming in. What'd you think about PJ's debut after entering the health and safety protocols?
I thought it was great. I mean, you could tell by his social media post that he was anxious to get out there, that he missed playing basketball. He brought a new energy. He talked about before the game that this team was missing a certain mentality. I think he helps to bring that back. Knock down shots, it's what you want to see from him, but also another big body. I mean, he contributed 8 rebounds in this game. They are thin on big bodies. They're thin on aggressive players, and I would count him as an aggressive player when he's out there. But this was an across the board win. I thought really the tone was set early in this game by Miles Bridges and by LaMelo Ball. And we've talked about it this week, how LaMelo Ball's passing has dipped over the past 2 games. Those 2 losses, he only accumulated, I think, a total of 3 assists. In this one, he has 12 assists, 12 points, and 8 rebounds, just short of the triple-double. Had this fourth quarter been a little bit more competitive, he probably gets the triple-double. Had it been more competitive, honestly, Kelly Oubre's got a shot at breaking the record. So, you know, I think I think Miles Bridges and LaMelo Ball really set the tone early in this game. They decided, all right, enough's enough. Time to get back on the winning track.
Yeah, you look at some of these stat lines, and P.J. Washington did a lot of his work early in the game. Miles Bridges, same thing, was starting off hot and then doesn't really do a ton in the box score after that, but it's because damage was already done. You didn't need a lot more. Like Miles Bridges played 26 minutes in this one, and you know Kelly Oubre scored 32 points playing 24 minutes, P.J. Washington 24, and so you didn't get a lot of minutes from these guys except for LaMelo, which is going to please everybody that wants LaMelo out there every single second of every single game. LaMelo played the most minutes in this one, 30 minutes. Didn't shoot extremely well from the field overall, but did decently well, 33% from beyond the arc, 3 of 9. But you're right, LaMelo looked like the type of player that we have seen maybe even earlier on, where he's dishing it out a little more, just trying to control the offense, really getting guys going by feeding them and allowing players to be better around him. I thought that was real interesting. And I want to talk about PJ just real quickly because I think this was the headline by Rod Boone, not by him because he doesn't make the headlines, but the headline for his piece in the Charlotte Observer, where it's like PJ Washington, you know, it's like, hey, PJ has the recipe to success. He's got the thing that's going to change this team. He's like, we need a different attitude. It's like, I'm going to bring it. I just thought that was funny. It's like, yeah, now PJ's going to enter, and now we're going to have a different attitude. Oh, now Hornets are going to play a lot better. But PJ hit shots. Like, that's what I want. I just want a better defender in the post. I want somebody that can hit shots and stretch the defense a lot more, because that's exactly what he's great at doing in this modern-day NBA, and that's what he was able to do. But a really, really nice win for the Hornets to get a game above 500 again, go 20-19, and now they're going to get a lot of rest, Doug, before their next game, Saturday against Milwaukee. And, you know, it's going to be one that would be a really nice win. Back-to-back games against Milwaukee, both at the Spectrum Center, one Saturday and one Monday. So we'll see if they can take advantage against a really good team in the East.
Oh, I'd say a couple of things. Sometimes it does take an outside voice, somebody who's looking at watching these games. He said he watched, you know, every game, every minute of every game that he was out. And sometimes it does take an outside voice to say, hey, I'm clearly seeing something that's missing here, and then bring that to the table. And so I think that's the unique position that PJ was in and was able to present to the team. So I'm not going to discount that. Also, I think that in this game, everything that we've seen be inconsistent this season, and there have been a lot of things that have been inconsistent this season, but all of those things seem to come together. Part of that was the fact that you're playing the Detroit Pistons. Yes, they did beat the Bucks with Giannis, but this Detroit team has generally played very poorly.
It would have been an awful loss had you not taken care of business.
Absolutely. And so you had Gordon Hayward being aggressive, took 11 shots in this game, 7 of 11 from the field. So that's been inconsistent this year. That came through for 19 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. That's a great line for Gordon Hayward. LaMelo Ball hasn't been inconsistent all season with the passing, but we talked about the 2 games that the passing dipped. That came back. He got back into triple-double form. Terry Rozier's shooting was there. Miles Bridges' three-point shooting. He was 3 of 3 from 3 in this game. You got to see more of that, and they've got 2 big tests against Milwaukee coming up. The big question now is can that carry over? And the defense played well as well.
Yeah, and so hopefully that can springboard them into playing well against Milwaukee. That would be a huge win, right? That would take care of maybe a disappointing loss that you had against Washington, you know, trying to balance all this stuff out. A victory against Milwaukee that would certainly help, and maybe this one can springboard you to doing that against the Bucks. A couple of games coming up Saturday and Monday against Milwaukee. All right, I think Doug's going to leave us now. He's got things to tend to. I'm going to go, I think, solo in the third segment, not before I tell you about Bet Online. They would like to wish you a happy new betting year as they continue the march to the playoffs and beyond. They remain the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. It's a new year, and they have a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So just use the promo code LOCKEDON to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and the easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. We have plenty more on their win against the Detroit Pistons and looking ahead to the rest of the season coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is Locked On Hornets.
LaMelo had an awesome dunk last night where he kind of goes to the right shoulder, comes back to the left, finishes, and does the head thing, got on you. He loves doing that, right? He's a high-low celebrator. He's going to put it on his head when he dunks on you, and then he's going to tell you how short you are when he scores in the post against you.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
All right, I think I'm going to go solo for this one. Doug left me. Julian was supposed to join me. We'll see if we can get him back in the fold here as soon as possible and figure out how he can talk more about the Charlotte Hornets. Instead, he's talking about the Carolina Panthers. One more week to go, so very busy with all the Matt Rule conversation. Is he going to come back? Should he come back? And all the starting quarterback stuff. Make sure you check him out at Julian Council, and you can listen to his podcast, Locked On Panthers. I want to talk about this Malik Monk stuff because this Malik Monk conversation, LeBron James mentioned the Charlotte Hornets. It's interesting, right? The Charlotte Hornets, they decide to move on from Malik. It's not necessarily a surprise. Malik had been a polarizing player for this franchise for quite some time. He was brought in after what we had thought was a slip in the NBA draft. We thought he was going to contribute right away, and hot and cold, put together a lot of flashes, maybe didn't think he was as consistent. And then he would put together longer stretches in the last couple of years, but there was always just something that would hold him back from really exploding, whether it be maybe what you would say is his own fault, violating the anti-drug program in the NBA. That got him suspended for a while. COVID would end that season where he got suspended, and he had his hot streak immediately ended. And so we all know the story with Malik. James Borrego didn't really want to play him all that much. And I think Malik would produce more often than not. In the end, they decided to move on. He didn't get a lot of offers out there on the open market. LA decides to bring him in for the vet minimum. And you look at what he's doing the last 5 games, scorching hot, shooting well from 3 at about 38%, shooting well overall from the field, which is a big-time uptick in what he's usually done with the Charlotte Hornets. He's shooting about 48% overall. So his effective field goal percentage is approaching 60. I mean, that's excellent. Those are great numbers for Malik Monk. If you've heard me talk about Malik for, I don't know, like anything longer than a 30-minute period, then you've probably heard me say his name. You know, not even hear me talk about Malik. If you've heard me talk at all for a longer stretch than 30 minutes, you've probably heard me mention his name on this podcast before. It's one of the bigger criticisms I take. I get it. I've always loved Malik Monk, one of my favorite players to watch. Thought he was very much so underappreciated. But he moves on with the Lakers. He's playing really well now, and we'll see if that continues over in Los Angeles. Here's the thing. LeBron James said after Malik Monk's really nice 5-game stretch, really nice game ever really since coming back from COVID protocols, experienced that over there in the LA team, LA franchise. LeBron said that he and Jason Kidd, when he was with the Lakers organization just the year prior, they both thought that the Hornets were misusing Malik Monk, and they both kind of talked out loud about, hey, is there any way you think we can go get him and bring him to be a part of this organization? And so that kind of started a little bit of a conversation via Hornets Twitter because LeBron said the Hornets misused Malik Monk. You have some people in the camp defending the team vigorously so, saying, no, the Hornets, they knew what they were doing. You have some people defending Malik, although not that many, saying, yeah, the Hornets actually did misuse him. Look, you probably know what camp I fall in. One of my bigger problems with James Borrego last year, and even the year prior, was not playing Malik Monk enough. I think Malik was a good player, and I know that that's polarizing. I know that there was some inconsistencies for him. I think he grew a lot as a defensive player, but I also think Malik was good. Here's the question is, one, whether the Hornets misused him, and do the Hornets regret not bringing him back with everything involved? Just the type of player he is, the type of contract he signed for, what you think it would have taken to bring him back to Charlotte, and whether he could have thrived here the way that he is, at least lately, with the Lakers organization. Let's talk about the way that the Hornets misused him. I think they did misuse him by not using him. I thought Malik was a better player than some of the guys getting minutes ahead of him. But James Borrego didn't want to put him out there, and so they move on. Okay, fine. Now we talk about, do we regret the Hornets not keeping him? No, I don't regret that. At the time, I did. You heard me this offseason, if you are a daily listener, who we really appreciate, but you heard me this offseason really question what the Charlotte Hornets did, letting Devontae Graham go for a protected first-round pick that is not going to convey this year because New Orleans is too bad and they're not going to make the playoffs. They also got rid of Malik Monk, not getting anything in return, and I don't know what would have been out there on the trade market anyway. It's less than what I even thought was already probably not that much in the first place. At first, I thought that was going to be a massive problem. But Kelly Oubre has made this palatable. And that was a signing I was lukewarm on. You know, I didn't hate it by any means. I thought it was a worthy enough signing. I thought the contract was good, especially with that second year not being guaranteed. But I thought Kelly Oubre would be a fine enough piece where he'd come in and you just kind of hoped, hey, can you get to 36% three-point shooting? And that's all I'm really going to ask for. Can you come off of the bench and help out really just offensively? And he's done that a lot more than I expected on a good contract. And so while I love Malik Monk, while I think that it was a mistake the way they handled him in the past, I also am in that middle ground where despite my love for him, this is okay. Like, I kind of look at this as more, I'm happy for Malik. You know, it's great that he's performing so well as a Laker. You know, it's great that his career can kind of take a different turn. Hadn't even turned 24 years old yet. You know, like, his career can go thrive over there with LA. I don't know if it would have happened here with Charlotte. In fact, I'd probably say it wouldn't. But Kelly Oubre comes in, and it makes the loss of Malik palatable. Look, Cody Martin. How about his development? Cody Martin has developed into a real NBA player that can help you as a defender, that can also shoot pretty well himself for what it's been mentioned this season. Jalen McDaniels has been somebody that's really improved. And so, yeah, if you were to ask me, Walker, would you like to have Malik on the roster? Sure. But if you're asking me, do I think it was a massive mistake for the Hornets to lose Malik the way they did? Do I regret it now, in hindsight, halfway through the 2021-2022 season? I don't think I do. And I think it's because I've been pleasantly surprised with what Kelly Oubre has done, with what Jalen McDaniels has done, same thing with Cody Martin. And now Malik is over there with LA doing really nice things. You know, LeBron can say that about Charlotte if he wants to. That's fine. I think it's interesting. One talking point people haven't mentioned a lot. It's not like LeBron is scared to say anything about a Michael Jordan run franchise, right? Like, we know MJ and LeBron are the two guys going against one another in the GOAT debate. We know LeBron James takes it to the Charlotte Bobcats or the Charlotte Hornets because Michael Jordan has been affiliated with this franchise for a long time. We can remember the fast break dunk, looking at Michael, slam, looking right at MJ, boom, putting it on him. Like, he's not going to be one to shy away from any whatsoever indirect criticism towards the owner of the Charlotte Hornets. And so while I might agree to some extent, I also know that LeBron James might have some kind of ulterior motive. And you know what another ulterior motive might be with those comments? It's the fact that he's praising his teammate. I mean, that's okay. I would love for the Charlotte Hornets to praise their teammates. That's the other thing about this. It's that we can get all up in arms, say, oh, how dare LeBron talk bad about the Charlotte Hornets franchise. Like, okay, you know, whatever. I don't mind because he's talking, if he said that about any guy, I mean, you have to certainly take it with a grain of salt because there can be a couple of ulterior motives. Trashing MJ, indirectly so, or directly, however you want to look at it, and also just taking defense of his teammate. Pretty easy to see. I think it all comes back to the Hornets. They're above 500 after their win last night against the Detroit Pistons. I don't think Malik would changed that record a lot. I think Kelly Oubre's defense hadn't been very good this year, but Kelly Oubre's offense has been sensational for the most part. And Malik, even if he improved as a defender, I don't think he was a world beater on that end by any means. And I don't think, honestly, you want to know the Hornet free agent that they let go that would have made the biggest change, in my opinion, that would have made the biggest difference? It's Cody Zeller over Mason Plumlee. And I'm not saying Cody Zeller would have vaulted them into the top 4, but we know how it's gone with Mason Plumlee. James Braga didn't want to play Cody last year, and he has no problem playing Mason, above 20 minutes. But that's the one to me that I think could have a real tangible effect. No, he's not going to defend the rim. I'm not saying that, but we know Mason Plumlee isn't doing that either. And so and who knows if he would have stayed healthy, right? I'm not even tripping over that Cody Zeller free agent loss. I'm not tripping over any of them. Malik, Devontae, Devontae's putting up identical. I mean, it's comical. Go look up his basketball reference page right now. He's putting up identical numbers to what he was putting up here in Charlotte, at least efficiency-wise. Pretty much useless scoring inside the arc, still a good shooter beyond the arc on high volume. Not getting to the free throw line, still a smart passer. I think his assists are down with New Orleans, but he's putting up identical numbers. I'm not tripping over any of them. The one you would question is Malik because he's been scorching hot lately. And even with my love coming back and tying this full circle, I would say I'm cool with it. I'm honestly at a place where I'm happy for Malik. I'm glad that he's found something that's going well. And I'm pretty excited about Kelly Oubre scoring 32 points, hitting 8 3-pointers in one quarter. That's made it palatable, and we'll see if the Charlotte Hornets keep him going forward. That'll do it for the Locked On Hornets podcast. Thanks to Doug for helping me out a couple of segments, and thanks to you guys for joining me here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, make sure your second listen is Locked On Bets. It's your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll be back with you tomorrow on the Locked On Hornets podcast.